Here's one. Should prostitution be legal? Welcome to Bearing the How podcast. Today I have Hunter and Reid on. I've been looking forward to this one. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. I'm doing good.
Nice. So what do you guys want to talk about? Let's talk about meditation. We were talking about it before. You have a retreat you're going to.
Yeah, I'm going on the Cuenca 10-day retreat. A lot of people are familiar with it, or if a lot of people have gone on a 10-day retreat, it tends to have been that one.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when you go on these retreats, I'm just curious, I've never done one, but is it all day meditating? Are there periods of time? Is it like...
It's about 11 hours a day total of meditation.
Jesus.
So something like 110 hours in 10 days.
How much are you doing now? You have to work your way up to it?
Now I do an hour a day as a guarantee, and then with very few exceptions if something's going crazy throughout the day. But lately I've been sitting twice a day. So I'll do an hour and then I'll do an extra 20 or 30 minutes. And then next week, I'll probably do 2 hours a day and then leading up to the retreat.
Can't imagine 11 hours a day. I can't imagine it.
Will be insightful.
Isn't it, like you must...
Painful.
Yeah, like is it not like boredom, right? You must hit a level of boredom.
Most people do.
Right?
Yeah.
But God, I can't imagine it.
Boredom is also one of my favorite topics. It's... If you think, after a while, if you sit long enough by yourself, and long enough could be 10 seconds, you will get bored, for sure.
Yes.
But boredom is a strange phenomenon that you can change almost instantly.
How do you do that? I've heard people talk about with boredom.
Boredom is
not being interested in anything, right? I mean, if it's like boredom is nothing is making you engaged. It seems like that's a way to define it a little bit.
I think we detect boredom when we detect that there's nothing keeping us interested, where there's nothing holding my attention, where there's nothing obvious to think about.
Yeah.
But even historically, for example, if you look at, think about people sailing on the ocean for months and months or years and years, like the first voyage to Australia, for example.
Yeah.
No one actually mentioned boredom. No one wrote, we're so bored. Ugh, it's
really?
No one mentioned the word because they didn't know what to expect. It was all new territory. It could be any day we could strike land, and there was something kind of keeping people hanging on.
Yeah.
And then the second voyage, of course, everyone, this is so boring. It was supposed to take 6 months. Now it's taking 8 months. Whatever the timeline. So when there's an expectation about about how stimulating something's supposed to be. I think boredom is inevitable, but in the exact same way, you could just reverse engineer that and then go to that moment and go, God, what's so boring? Like, what is there not to pay attention to?
Yeah.
And maybe not the thing that you want, and you can get frustrated and stuff, but I find that the boredom, I can cure boredom for short periods of time on purpose.
So how the hell do you do that? How? Give me your knowledge. Like, feed me with this knowledge on how to.
You might be expecting a little too much of me. I'm not teaching the retreat, by the way.
Yeah.
But
I just get bored. Like I'm not good with that.
Gotcha.
I gotta stay like interested in something most of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Meditation is hard. Like it really takes a lot of willpower for me to do it consistently.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I was asking Reid personally what his relationship to meditation is and what inspired him, because very often that's the first hurdle for people, where it just sounds boring. Yeah, you sit in silence, close your eyes. Basically, you eliminate as much stimulation as possible. Most of what we do is trying to get away from that as far as possible, or as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
How can I avoid having to sit with myself in silence or something like that?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not normative 24/7. I don't think everyone should be a monk, for example. We wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that some people are monks and they can teach us whatever insight is to be gained from doing that 24/7.
Yeah.
But this is where also, to me, I don't know about you, first principles really help. Like, if I don't know why I'm doing something, if I don't know what I'm dedicating myself to, or what I stand to gain or lose, I am a very hard sell.
Yeah.
So, is it not loud and clear? Sorry.
Yeah. There you go.
I would have never probably tried meditation earlier in my life for those reasons. I would have just not been convinced that there was anything to gain from that experience. And
what was it that kind of pushed you to do it? At least where you're doing it consistently.
I think I think it was the trick of the secular benefits, where it wasn't, at the time, it wasn't even necessarily important that it was secular or something, but just where if you told me, okay, we're not going to meditate, but first do me a favor, just close your eyes. Now notice your body sitting on the chair, notice the sensations in your body. Yeah. Now notice whatever's going on in your mind. And basically that is a guided meditation, right? I see. So you do it first, and then the flip side of that coin is that you can take it anywhere also. There's no moment that you can't potentially be kind of meditating while you're doing other things. Yeah. So you can always tune in. You can always, insofar as you are noticing whatever is going on in your conscious experience or even physically, you're kind of doing it. Yeah. So meditation with a capital M is kind of the paradigm. That's when you're doing, at least, again, this is all from what I've learned, but you're just doing the most. It's like you can be resting, you can lay down on bed, and you can kind of stare at the ceiling and go, this is nice, right? You're not stressed, you're not exerting any obvious energy, but you're not sleeping. And then eventually you sleep, and you can't rest instead of sleep, but you also can't sleep all the time, but you can rest all the time.
So let me ask you this, just what like do you think when you're meditating, or what is your, because for most people, for a lot of people, for me, monkey mind. I mean, like, what the fuck do you do to get past that hurdle, that initial hurdle, the crazy thoughts? What I understand, what I've always done is a lot of the time it's just repeat, like a mantra, like have something that I repeat, and then my mind goes off into a crazy area, and then try to bring it back to that focal point. But what is the goal, or what do you think? What thoughts? Is it really like you're trying to, people say it's cheesy and cliche, but like, are you trying to eliminate thinking, which is impossible, or do you have a mantra that you say over and over? Do you focus on your breath? Like, how do you get past that hurdle? That's the hardest fucking
I try
part
not to have mantras, and I don't know, do you do
So what do you do? You focus on your breath or what?
No. Yeah, I have strategies, I guess, instead of mantras. Like I'll like almost like a baseline or a rule, quote unquote.
Gotcha.
The breath is great because it's autonomic, and you breathe whether you want to or not, or you stop breathing on purpose, and then you start breathing on accident, because you'll pass out. So you can do that, but you can come back to some things that are constant. Like you can always pay attention to sensations in your body, what you hear. You can't control. I'm also closing my eyes when I meditate. Some people meditate with their eyes open. But I will, again, this is where the first principles really are important to me, where I'll sit there, and before you know it, you will be distracted. That's a guarantee. There's no place that you get to where you're never distracted. So what do I think about? Whatever my mind wants to think about.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, is it like you're paying more attention to the thoughts you're having and trying to like detach from those thoughts?
So here's what also shifted for me. One of my favorite teachers, I have not met this person, Joseph Goldstein. He told an anecdote one time about how he started meditating. He was so thrilled with the results and the experience. He would tell his friends to come over and watch him meditate. Really? He's like, look, this is amazing, right? And he would sit there, and they would just be like, this is even more boring than meditating. It was watching somebody meditate, right? But he was just so excited in his youth and vigor. And so I thought that was so funny because
his experience must have been way fucking different than what.
Well, exactly, because you sit there, and if you just wait a few seconds, stuff will start happening. Yeah. And if you're engaged in if you have a kind of a goal, like, okay, I'm going to observe my thoughts. I'm going to consider them as components of my consciousness that just arise and pass away. And my breath comes and goes, just like thoughts and feelings. And now
I like the way you said that. Components of your consciousness.
Yeah, these are kind of how you can get a little distance without being completely dissociative, but you can get a little distance between what is really going on. I'm a Homo sapien sitting with crossed legs, motionless, with my eyes closed, and yet there's this circus in my mind all the time that I really don't have very much control over. So you can choose to follow the breath, but you can't choose to not be distracted.
Yeah,
You're
I
going
see
to
what
be.
you're saying.
So, but just to the point of boredom, you get bored when you kind of expect life to be any different, right? When you think, well, I should be doing this other thing, or I should be engaged. It just sounds better.
Yeah.
And it's when I ask myself, again, this is my own. This is something I do come back to. Is basically why do I need that? Why is it that I'm already bored? It's been 1 minute and I have 59 more minutes or however long, and I think, what a strange sensation. I can't just sit here. I could do anything else. I can sit behind the wheel of a car. I can be recreational in other ways.
Yes.
And for some reason, those are fine, and this is not. And why is this not fine? Why is it not fine to just sit with myself? So the mental health component to me is when that situation arises when you're actually doing something else.
Yeah.
So it might not be boredom, but it might be frustration or anger or I saw some guy on the road today in the passenger seat. His wife, or who I suspect to be his wife, was driving, and he was so angry. He was looking my direction, but I think he was angry at someone next to me.
Road rage.
It was
like
traffic. Yeah. I don't know who he was mad at. We were all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And he was leaning over his wife, obstructing her view of the road to make a gun motion with his hand and pretend to shoot somebody.
Jesus.
So the way this guy chose to spend his time on the road was getting mad at somebody in traffic by obstructing his own driver's view to threaten somebody's life with his hands. So
I was about to ask you how, sorry to interrupt you, but how do you how would you how would you sell meditation? If you got the opportunity to speak about it or to say something about it that could, because I agree with you, the mental health benefits. You were just mentioning American of the Calling Mind like a second ago before we started recording. Yeah,
right.
What did I just fucking say?
Yeah.
You were mentioning like meditation tying into that stuff. What did you mean by that? Because how can meditation help with a lot of the shit that's going on right now?
Well, people do it popularly, I think, now.
New agey.
Sometimes it's new agey, and sometimes it's like what John Kabat-Zinn, I think, calls McMindfulness, where it's delivered piecemeal, like a fast food mindfulness. Like, be present, be in the moment.
Yeah.
And like, first of all, that's bad advice. That's like saying, be safe or don't get in a car accident.
Yeah.
By definition, if you're not, like Ellen Langer says, if you're not around to be mindful, you're being mindless, and therefore you don't know you're being mindless. And then the minute you tune in, you are being mindful.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's advice when it's not needed. But generally speaking, it's something we could all do more of. Selling it, there would have to be something that somebody wants to change as a result, I think. I don't think I could just say, you're perfectly happy with the way your life is going right now. By the way, add this seemingly very boring, very energy demanding activity.
Yeah.
I think somebody would have to see the connection between reducing suffering and doing it.
Yeah. Like what benefit, or let me put it this way, or let me use my life as an example, or like my shit that I've been going through. How could meditation help me if I were to say, listen, Hunter, like 2 weeks, I want to try out meditation. My job is grueling right now. Like we're transitioning to a new kitchen and there's a lot of turnover right now and it's stressful every day. What benefits could I see like day to day if I were to start meditating? And I like really made the pact and I'm going to do it every day for an hour. What benefits would I really be able to notice?
Gotcha. I would probably suggest tracking your experience first when things are not good, so that you might see meditation as an antidote to that. Because I know that adding something to somebody's life can be a really big change, and that it will be the most recently added thing can often be the first thing to go.
Yeah.
So I might ask, tell me about when you're stressed out. What are you thinking about? What is that sensation like? And how long does it last? What tends to happen? And then chances are, if you've never trained your mind or your attention, feeling stressed equals being being a grouch, being pissed off, sleeping worse, being worse to other people.
Sure.
And maybe even taking drastic steps to not feel that way.
Yeah.
So maybe someone starts using more substances. Maybe someone starts taking it out on other people. pets, relatives, etc.
Yeah, for sure.
So the meditation would really only be a practice in noticing that your whatever sensation you're going through at that moment, it has the same or a similar character to any other sensation you could be feeling. So if you're stressed, you might notice, well, what does it feel like to be stressed? What does it really mean to be stressed out? And if you stopped and you tuned in for long enough, or if I asked you to be stressed, go ahead and be stressed for about 5 minutes, right? It seems like nonsense. It seems like the stupidest request. And yet, on accident, tomorrow, you will be stressed for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
As a guarantee.
Guarantee.
So why is it so different? For some reason, we can't conjure it up on purpose, and yet we notice our life as a series of accidental sensations and emotions.
Yeah, 100%.
So
You're
that,
supposed to sell me like a quick fix, dude.
Yeah, sorry.
Here's
So
the quick
my
fix.
elevator pitch or my you'll feel better instantly.
Yeah, it'll make you feel better.
Yeah,
perfectly
right.
instantly.
No, it won't. I promise.
Yeah.
But like someone who is lazy, overweight, and really slovenly or whatever the case, it sounds like hell to work out. It sounds like the stupidest idea, right? Why would I ever do that?
No.
It's uncomfortable, right? You mean voluntarily?
Voluntarily
sweat and ache
tearing
and
my
get
fucking
tired
muscles.
and it just sounds dumb on its face, right?
Yeah.
But suffering sleep apnea and then suffering all the health consequences associated with obesity, and then your diet getting even worse because now you're tired and now you're grouchy and now you're slower and now everything is harder for you.
Yeah.
And you're basically working out, just getting out of bed. That's way worse than doing a workout some portion of the week.
The discipline of it.
So
the discipline.
there is that, but it's hard to convince somebody if that is where they're starting from because of how unappealing it sounds. It's so counterintuitive. You mean do more of the thing that I'm trying to not do?
Yeah.
And trying to get away from physical activity is normally how people get into that situation.
Yeah, for sure.
So you do have to introduce a little pain through the meditation and go, God, this just sucks, or for 5 minutes a day, for 1 minute a day, you might hate that experience. But when you're familiar with that experience, you go into other experiences and you're like, oh, it was way harder to sit with me for 5 minutes than it was to sit with my annoying sister, brother, or friend.
The psychological
and then
battle.
And you have kind of a point of comparison, and the stress levels become relative.
Yeah.
And boredom ceases to be boredom, because if you have nothing and then you go to a movie theater and you're sitting through the previews, well, there's a lot going on all of a sudden where your ordinary person is like, God, when this movie starts, just come on.
Yeah, that for me sounds like that's a very appealing way to put it for me is like, if I can put myself through, an hour right now seems ridiculous for me to try to do an hour, start with 10 minutes maybe, but to think if you could put yourself through 10, 15 minutes, work your way up to 30 minutes a day of completely sitting with yourself in that state, a lot of shit that you're going to face is going to not be nearly as filled with boredom.
Yeah.
It seems like that. It's like putting yourself through that allows you to have a different expectations for the next thing. And I was going to ask you, you've been doing Waking Up, right? Sam Harris's.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've meditated, probably around 60 days, but I'm a fan of it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's a great skill set to have. For me, one of the benefits is the ability to cultivate your attention, being able to have more awareness of it, and also it kind of relates to critical thinking, where intuitions come first, strategic reasoning second. So if you're more in tune with how your brain is feeling and those types of things, if you're angry, you're more stupid. So
yeah,
it helps in that way too.
Yeah, I was gonna I think I maybe have asked you that, but is there a difference? I've heard someone talk about this, don't remember who, but is there a type of meditation that is specifically beneficial for focusing better, where it really allows you to in other areas of your life?
I think there's some that are worse. I don't know if there's one. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, the quote unquote the meditation style that is meant to blah blah blah. But from I think part of the set of outcome goals of Vipassana, for example, is explicitly attention, or training your attention is a common phrase. And like he said, if you can observe those mindsets or I guess even just even physical sensations where maybe you're not pissed off, you're just your foot hurts. You can think about those things as they are, as though they weren't you. And spoiler alert, one of the big insights of Vipassana is that there is no self. There's no homunculus or ghost in the machine or whatever phrase you want to use. So you are whatever is going on in your mind. You are your thoughts. So if you say, I have this friend and he's really not a mean guy. He just acts really mean all the time. I might say, it sounds like your friend is a mean guy. There's not a lot of difference there. So if you said, I'm not a pissed off person, I'm just pissed off 24/7. That also doesn't make it. There's no other way to.
People who say that I'm a good guy, I'm a
good guy. I just do a lot of really mean things all the time. Right? So I'm ambivalent about using quote unquote labels. Mental health community is really big on. You're not anxious, you just experience anxiety. You're not traumatized, you've just experienced trauma, or you're just a person with blah, blah, blah.
And so you don't think there's...
I'm just ambivalent about it. I feel where it works, where someone will say, for example, we were talking about depression earlier, someone will say, I am depressed. I am a depressed individual, and that's just how it is. Those people can gain a lot from putting a little wedge between themselves and the depression, where they might say, oh my gosh, I never realized I have a lot to rejoice about, or I have a lot to be thankful for in my life, but I do feel very depressed, very really depressed a lot of the time, or some of the time. So
let me, if you don't mean to cut you off while we're on that, I wanted to bring this up to just get both of your guys' perspective on it. Depression, I made a clip, and I was telling you guys, I made this clip. The title is Depression Real? Posted on Facebook groups and stuff, normal Reddit groups, which actually, it's funny thinking about it. The Facebook groups, everyone was completely like just pissed off that I even asked the question. They're like, are you kidding me? You're a complete moron. Like, of course depression is real, like blah, blah, blah. Reddit was like, it was surprising, but the people on Reddit were like, hell yeah, I like what you're kind of talking about in this clip. Like it was more of like, maybe the way I could label it is Reddit seemed like it had way more conservative values. Like they were like, people who just constantly claim they're depressed, like they're just being pussies, The people on Facebook were like, thought I was like evil just asking the question. But my, like, the way that I meant to ask it and kind of what I meant was, of course, chemical imbalances, like, of course, if there's something going on, I don't even know, like, I'm not well knowledge on depression and all the symptoms and what, I know obviously serotonin, you take antidepressants, there are certain things that help with it, whatever. But my question was like, is it just like, it's talked about in such an over-exaggerated way? People like to label themselves, I'm depressed. Like, I am a depressed person. I'm depressed. And for me, I guess where I start to feel that friction is, but you could probably not be depressed if you took more action to change your life. Like, if you ask someone, why are you depressed? And they say, my girlfriend dumped me. I'm like, you're not depressed. You just got dumped and you need to probably try to go date someone else. I see. You know what I mean? So that's like what I'm throwing out there is just wondering, because the girl that I had on, one of my good friends, she's from Spain, and she was like, people in Spain don't talk about depression like we do here in the US. Like, people don't brag about it and stuff. So I don't know. I just want to especially get your opinion, therapist.
I see. I hear I hear two topics. One is depression as a clinical term, what is either the experience of depression or what is the phenomenology of depression? I am curious
about that too, the actual like experience of it, the symptoms, but then also these just that there's so many people talking about depression and anxiety, and my feeling is like, is it really that, or is it just that they're not doing more to change their life? You know what I mean? I've experienced that firsthand with myself. Like, I started taking action to take steps to try to like fix the shit that was wrong, and I felt better immediately. You start to feel better. So that's like what I'm throwing out there.
I see. Right. So the phenomenon of depression is a real thing. There's a reason the word exists, and for example, if you open the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders, there's a depressive disorders.
And what does that mean? What DSM? Symptoms, like what?
Well,
how do you diagnose that?
Well, the DSM-5 is what people use to diagnose, let's say in a professional setting, like if I have to, for someone's insurance, like I have to make a diagnosis and I have to report a name of something, then I would write whatever the corresponding code is.
Yeah.
The DSM is also kind of a controversial thing.
What is that?
It's like the dictionary for psychiatric disorders.
Okay.
So if personality disorders, anxiety disorders, PTSD, OCD, everything under the sun.
Gotcha.
And because it's written by humans and it's meant to account for clusters of disorders, that is to say symptoms, right? So if aliens came down from outer space, by the way, all my mental health clinicians out there, bear with me. This is my layperson description of what the DSM is.
Oh yeah. Please.
So
keep it where I can
people have very
understand
strong
it.
opinions, and I can tell you both sides why. Where again, I'm also kind of ambivalent about the DSM, but I can argue for and against it. If aliens came down from outer space and said, "Hey, what do you know? These 30,000 Americans say that they are high strung, they ruminate, they have racing thoughts, they find it difficult to." Sit still, they're restless, something like that.
Yeah.
We might call that anxiety, right? And you go, okay, cool, whatever. It doesn't matter what word you put. You need to account for all those symptoms, especially if it causes dysfunction. So depression would be the same way.
Yeah.
If you have a certain number of this set of symptoms, you can get labeled depressed or majorly depressed, or you have a persistent depressive disorder if it's longer than a certain time, stuff like that.
Yeah.
PTSD works the same way. So sad mood is very common, sad or depressed mood.
Yeah.
And then also there's a lethargy associated with it. You could be suicidal. You could have sleep disruptions.
Physical symptoms too?
Yeah. So like if you're having sleep disruptions, some people have early waking insomnia, like they'll fall asleep, or they'll have hypersomnia. They'll sleep a lot, but they won't feel rested. They'll still feel really slow. They'll have psychomotor retardation. Won't be able to get out of bed. Andrew Solomon is one of my favorite authors who writes about this beautifully. An Atlas of Depression is the subtitle of his book, and it's The Noonday Demon is what it's called.
Cool.
It's fantastic.
I'll put it in the show notes.
And a lot of celebrities have talked about depression, especially recently. There's been a big mental health breakthrough.
That's why I kind of want to bring it up. Just, I guess another question I'd have is, so you can diagnose depression. There are actual symptoms that you can pinpoint that you can diagnose it. But I guess the question I'd ask is it like, is there anything that they can do about it? Like that's the question I have. Is it like, is there someone that is doing everything they can in their life to make it better? They're fixing the relationship with their ex or whatever. They're being a good parent to their kids. They've got a new job. They're making money. They've paid off all their loans, and they're just taking all of these steps to make their life better. But no matter what, they still are having these symptoms. And then that's the question I have is that I can understand, like, okay, well, there's obviously something like deeper going on there. But what about people that, like, if someone were to come into you and they're like, I'm depressed, Hunter. Like I've been depressed the past couple of weeks. I'm feeling like shit. I can't sleep. Like I'm whatever. And then you say, well, how's your life going? You're like, well, I just lost my job. I don't have any money. My girlfriend dumped me. Would you say, well, you're not depressed? I don't want to label you depressed. I'm saying your life fucking sucks right now. I know you wouldn't say that obviously, but like, you know what I mean? Do you understand that kind of difference?
Of course.
Trying to
And the
get at.
authors of the DSM have kind of accounted for that too. And there's a bereavement clause now that has been popular where if someone has lost somebody, you can have it's almost like an exception. And
I see.
If you're bereaved or if you say I'm depressed and what you really mean is I'm really sad.
Yeah, that's like one of these, that's what I was trying to get at. And everyone just called me a fucking asshole for even asking the question. But that's what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is that difference. Like, is it really that you're depressed, or is it just that you need to try to fix your life, like, anyway.
Yeah, so if you needed to meet the criteria, then I would, and I've done this with my clients, if they need a label, there's the phrase name it and tame it is a way of sometimes feeling very normalized by your diagnosis and going, oh my God, I'm not the only one. I've heard that so many times.
About that before a little bit.
And then the other would be someone that says, I'm not just a label, I'm not just a depressed person. And that person doesn't really need the diagnosis in the first place.
Yeah.
But if it's for insurance, or if there's some uncomfortable way to go, like, hey, look, I have diagnosed you and for this particular reason, then I might even bring the DSM in the room and say, look, these people made this book. It's clusters of symptoms, and you happen to meet these. All it means is that some people go through these circumstances just like you, and we don't have to call it depression, but Anthem Blue Cross wants to call it depression, and it doesn't matter what word. But I also hear you talking about a different phenomenon, which doesn't have to be just depression.
That's what I guess I'm wondering.
That could be anything. That could be trauma. Mark Epstein writes a lot of, but he's a Buddhist and a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
He's cronies with Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg and all them too. So, but he writes beautifully about these two worlds meeting. And but I hear the other problem of somebody having an explanation that they're using also as a justification.
I guess you're getting at it when you say that. That's kind of what I was
That's the way I see it. Like if someone says, if it helps to use clinical examples, I can, but someone might say, let's say you hear your neighbor beating up his wife, and you confront the guy and you go, what's the deal? And he says, oh, you don't understand. I've had such a hard day at work. That's the only reason I'm beating her. You wouldn't go, oh, you should have said that. Oh, okay, well, have a great night. You'd say, I don't care. There's no excuse for that, right?
For sure.
So, of course, there is a neural correlate to man beating his wife, right? Yeah. There's something happened at day one that led to day N where that's what's going on, right? Yeah. And ideally, we can intervene. Something can happen before that day, but the fact is, at that day, at that moment, that's exactly what was going to happen, right? And so, unfortunately, people intervene afterwards in the form of police and arrests, et cetera. But there is a description of the way the world was before that. So maybe this brings us full circle to Lukianoff and John the Knight, is that there's a discomfort involved, or there's a phenomenon involved in any situation, any behavior. But is that enough? Is that the thing? Once we point to that, what are we left with? We still have to do something about it. The best part to me is that if a person is in therapy telling me about that, I don't need to say anything because they're already in therapy. It's great. They've done it. They've made it somewhere. Doesn't mean it's the end of the road, but they've made it far enough that now they're with somebody who can talk with them about this thing, especially in a non-stigmatizing way, where if someone is really depressed, even if they're not, let's say maybe they're just quote unquote using that depression. Yeah. Like people accuse them, my mom says I'm just using this as an excuse. Great, let's talk about mom. Let's talk about what do you want to do next,
Yeah. Thank you for clearing that up.
Oh, of course.
Makes way more sense to me.
This is my bread and butter, but do you want to say something about that too?
Sure. Maybe like a related concept or idea is the hedonic treadmill. Mm-hmm. It's like they did a study where they gave a bunch of people in the 90s, I think like a beeper or something.
Just a little quote there.
And
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of this study where people would just, give sevens. They're just fine.
I think I have heard of that.
Occasionally they were like a 9 or something bad was happening. It was a 4, but on average, people are around like a 7. So this is just kind of like we have mild discomfort all the time. Usually, like things are usually fine, but we're never constantly super happy.
Yeah.
And that's just we're never going to get there. We always go back to this. Set happiness level, like we're on a treadmill.
Yeah. That type of thing, Well, meditation will fucking help that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's expectations. I mean, like if you're always expecting to be at a 10, I mean, we've talked about this before. I wanted to ask you one question though, still on the depression thing, like trying to think of the best way to ask it. How would you go about like prescribing someone medication? Like, where is that line that you draw? You'd give them antidepressants.
I'm not an MD, so I don't personally prescribe medication. But if I referred someone to a psychiatrist, for example, psychiatry is a deep rabbit hole. Also,
we can go down whatever rabbit hole.
That's also it's a profession that I think is necessary. I think people will look back and go, how did they ever succeed with medication?
Really?
Because it's one of the only, some psychiatrists gave a TED talk that he's the only doctor who doesn't look at the body part that he's treating. He never opens their head and looks at their brain and
that's a really good way.
prescribes.
Wow, I haven't thought about it really like that.
So it's guesswork, but it's not complete guesswork, I guess you could say. It's trial and error that leads often to really, really successful outcomes. So,
I mean, there are people that really think psychiatry is like completely bullshit. You know, I've heard people definitely talking about it. What are you nodding over there for?
And then there's the psychiatry, the industry of death, the Scientology people. That like goes that far.
Oh, Tom Cruise, that one, that interview he did where he just completely went off talking about psychiatry.
Well, there are religious reasons within Scientology, and it's L. Ron's philosophy why that preclude psychiatric intervention. But I just think of it from a purely physical standpoint. Like your brain is doing stuff all the time. And if you can't engage your brain in ways that make you not miserable, then do whatever makes you not miserable. Ethically speaking, please don't harm other people in the process. But if you need to move to a desert island and sit there the rest of your life, do that.
Yeah, take a bunch of cocaine.
Like, honestly, cocaine is a neurostimulant, right? It's not a drug Prozac, you know. But the reason cocaine would be a funny prescription would be because it does other things that make people miserable later. It's first of all, very short-term payoff.
I was about to say,
very hard to do
on here saying
other
do
things.
Cocaine.
Yeah, I mean, you can, right?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, so I work in a rehab. Also, I've my whole therapist career I've worked with addiction, and a drug being legal or not legal has never stopped somebody from doing what they wanted to do. But they all show up afterwards and they don't say, I'm only here because I didn't realize cocaine was illegal and I really need to stop breaking the law so much. They come and they go, I tried cocaine and it did not work for me. So I also have a lot of conversations with people that say, I tried Prozac and it didn't work for me. And I personally don't discriminate. I don't treat people differently just because they tried one or the other. I don't say, well, why would you try cocaine, right? It really works for 15 minutes, for an hour, for as long as you have the cash, whatever. So also another thing that I just got sick and tired of hearing, and especially in grad school, was this thing changes your brain. Everything changes your brain, just FYI.
Wait, what do you mean this thing? Like drugs?
Everything changes your brain. Everything you do, everything you look at, everything you hear, everything you think changes your brain. You'd be dead if your brain was not changing, right? If it was just steady state, means you're not even in a coma. Even in a coma, you're maybe going through non-REM sleep or so.
Well, what were they saying in grad school?
Well, they would say something like, you take a drug and if you use it long enough, it changes your brain such that, and I don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be coy. I get what people mean. What they mean is it changes my brain such that I'm not able to make decisions after event X that I was before it. So if I've never used heroin and I develop a 10-year heroin habit, I'm going to be a slightly different person after those 10 years. And heroin is going to take on a whole new meaning in my life. And I'm totally sympathetic to that. So I'm not saying that to be cynical. I'm saying it to be hopeful. That, by the way, isn't this great? Heroin changed your brain in all these ways, but therapy changes your brain dramatically. Something like meditation could change your brain. Even joining a club can change your brain. You can, if you meet the right people, if you move to a new place, if you develop even a different type of habit, and it doesn't have to be a classic diet and exercise one, although that changes your brain a lot. So I definitely recommend that. There's good reasons for that. But you might take up a new hobby. You might learn a new language. You might start reading for leisure. Things that people wouldn't expect will also change your brain. And let's face it, whatever you focus on, whatever your attention is bound by every day, all day, you will become more like that. So this is my comment about thoughts being who you are. If I'm thinking about peace and harmony and being a good person, being compassionate and honing my ethical compass all the time, maybe that's occupying my mind in a way that heroin used to. Well, I'd rather be around person A than person B, and I think they would rather be person A than person B. So I'd rather be worrying about oh my gosh, well, am I giving enough to charity, and am I helping enough people around me, rather than worrying about, oh, am I impressing people enough? Do people think highly enough of me? Am I something like that?
Yeah, for sure.
So worry might be the same in both circumstances,
yeah.
but the content is so different that you will become the person who cares about whatever you're worrying about.
There's two things I kind of want to ask. I'm curious, just you brought it up and it made me think about drugs, like drugs being legal, not being legal. What are your thoughts on if all drugs were made legal in America? What differences that could make? It just kind of ties in that. But the other thing I want to ask is like, what thank you. Like, it's such a badass reminder every time you come on, and we'd have, it's like a therapy session for me. Like, it's such a good reminder, and it like makes me remember and think about all this. But what are ways that you can, like, your thoughts being who you are, right? Mm-hmm. How can I'll use myself as an example. What steps can I take to like stop fucking worrying so much? Like,
to stop worrying.
You know
so
what
much.
I mean? Like the thoughts, like the constant thoughts of like the future, and like, but this, like I have good days, bad days, but the meditation I'm sure would be an amazing help. But what, like, just talking about this and you putting it the way you're putting it, your thoughts are who you are, focus on the good stuff. It's like, well, Cole, wake the fuck up. Just stop worrying so much. Like, preoccupy your mind with good things and not bad things. But I'm just curious, like, what is there one, like a quick fix, just fucking around, like what step can I take tonight, tomorrow morning, when I get to work, to remind myself, even like what's something I can do to remind myself of, you're going down that pattern, stop. Like, here's something you can put in place of this pattern that you usually go down. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, if we need to bookmark the biggest question, should drugs be legal? Pretty big question.
Let's bookmark that.
Short answer.
1 second.
Okay, yeah. Right. Just to your question about worrying, it might sound paradoxical.
I'll just text you from now on when I'm starting to worry. Hey, Hunter,
yes, right.
please.
Hey, what should I do? I'm not a psychic, so I don't know what's going on in your mind, but I'm hesitant to ever recommend that somebody ignore something that is a part of their experience, or to push it out, or to act like it's not there, or to even by sheer what would you call that? By spatial economy in your mind, just push it out by adding more things. Like, okay, I can't be worried about this if I'm thinking about this. I would. Yeah. I'm
gonna pause for just. Sorry about that.
So I think that's one of the benefits of therapy, is that you're stripped of any other thing to think about, where the person comes in and it's really just hopefully kind of a ordinary, an office and just a person. So it's the chance to come face to face with whatever might be going on, no matter how embarrassing, or in your ordinary experience, no matter how unpleasant. Like, for example, if a client came in and they said, I worry all the time. And I said, well, I got this deck of cards. Let's play poker. Right? And then they left. And I said, oh, good. Well, I got there. Yeah, they stopped worrying for an hour, right? Good. I'm so glad. Probably wouldn't be a good use of either of our time.
Yeah.
And in fact, the opposite happens, where you go, tell me about help me understand what it's like to worry. What do you worry about?
Yeah.
And similarly, if you said, if let's say you moved in with somebody, you had a roommate or a relative, and you said, I live with my sister and she's so obnoxious and she's always making noise and there's just nothing I can do about it. I might not say, well, have you ever thought about killing her? Have you ever thought about throwing her out? Have you ever thought about getting her evicted? Especially if you have to live with this, right? And if it's your own mind, it's like trying to fall asleep. It's the more you try, the less you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So I might just be interested in the nature of that experience.
Yeah.
And you may or may not find out when I sit for long periods of time and I start to get agitated about something or ruminating about something. I'll think, what is it about me that makes me so drawn to this? Because other people don't need this. Other people don't get worried about these things.
Yeah.
For other people, it's not even interesting to think about these things.
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean they're better off, but it just means that I happen to be the kind of person who really hates this thing or really gets worked up about this thing.
I need to book you for a therapy session, a real one.
This would be a dual relationship. I'm pleased, though, that you would refer to me or that you trust me. Thank you.
I always I really mean it. Every time you come on, it's like an amazing reminder of all the shit
I'm
that
glad.
we talk about.
Want to be helpful.
Yeah, you are. For
Reid,
sure.
if I said anything egregious or anything that you want to disagree with,
I mean,
please do.
For me, if I'm worrying about the future, I try to get back into my getting things done routine. Have you heard of that book?
No, I haven't. What is that book?
I mean, it's like a productivity, book.
Gotcha.
Basically, I capture all the time. Anything I have a thought of things that I might do in the future.
Yeah.
I put it in my phone in my GTD OmniFocus app. So I have it like an inbox list of like just random things that I think of.
Gotcha. That's always good for sure. And like write shit down as it pops into your mind.
Yeah. So if I think of it again, it's like, oh, I've already thought of that. It's in this list. What the goal was to have like a trusted source of like projects and tasks and stuff. And if you have a trusted source of like everything that I need to do is there, so I can do that to make progress on goals.
For sure. That's a good, I definitely should do that. Get it out of your mind. Oops. You're good. What about the drug question? The drug question.
I've only seen legalizing drugs be helpful in other countries, for example, and I guess even in the United States. Maybe it's kind of where my bubble of where I work, and it almost never comes up unless I'm talking about with people that use drugs or don't use drugs, where unless there was a legal concern that arose from the drug use, like almost just an incidental occurrence, like somebody said, oh, what do you know, I got pulled over and I happened to have an illegal drug while I was intoxicated on this legal, like they were drunk and then they had cocaine in the trunk or something like that.
Yeah.
Then it's, but it was really the drunk driving that got this person in initial trouble or that got them out of control.
Yeah.
So the legality of a drug, just mental health wise, never comes up. Other than it being just a barrier or a hurdle to them getting more of it, or them getting caught with it. So I don't. Again, legality has also never been a reason that somebody has struggled to become addicted to a drug.
So what benefits do you think, like in other countries? Just what are some of the things that legalizing
the street or the black market would vanish in a lot of cases, or dramatically decrease, and so people would be in less precarious situations if they did choose to use. It'd be like alcohol, right? A lot of people drink, and again, this is another thing that happens a lot, is that there's almost like the depression topic where it's not exactly clear what an alcoholic is or is not. There's not like a clinical. I mean, there's a description, but there's not a way of knowing for sure unless you are that person. So if you come into my office and you say, I think I might be an alcoholic, or if you say, I am an alcoholic, or if you say, I drink a lot, to me, I don't mind. I want to know what you care. I mean, what you care about, like, do I want to drink less? Do I want to drink more? But I don't have an opinion myself. I never sit there and I go, yeah, you say you're now. I don't do that. I'm not like suspicious of that.
Yeah. Why just to get like what your both of you guys' opinions on it? Or I don't know if you guys know the history or whatever, but why is alcohol and cigarettes legal, but other shit isn't?
I recommend Johann Hari's Chasing the Scream book.
What does it say that again?
Johann Hari is the author. He also wrote a book about depression last year too, I think. Chasing the Scream is his book about depression.
Chasing the Scream, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll look that up for sure.
Might as well read it, because unless you are abnormally acquainted with this topic, I'm.
No, I'll read it.
Yeah,
There's always something curious I like to bring up, like why is alcohol?
Well, almost just looking back, when people arrived to this country the first time, and other than the Native Americans, there were no laws or rules, so everything is legal until it's not.
Yeah.
So it's not that there's a reason for something being legal; there's a reason for it being not legal.
That's a good way.
So I look at it like that.
Yeah, that's a way better way to ask.
Tried prohibition, didn't work out so well.
Did not work.
Yeah, things got pretty bad, pretty hairy.
Yeah, I think it's good that marijuana. Yeah, I think it's awesome that marijuana is now just getting way more to the point where it's more legal. Psilocybin. Yeah, it's gonna come.
And just for the record, there's almost a 100% chance that if there's a new client that shows up to the treatment center I work at, it will not be because of marijuana.
Oh,
so none of my clients
you just said that
are.
For sure.
Yeah, just as a statistic.
Yeah,
it's just me. It's just my experience. But I've never treated a client in a rehab for exclusively marijuana use. And in my private practice, marijuana can be a problem, but it's rarely, it doesn't mean it's not the case. There's a lot of people really, really struggling. But rarely is it just, oh my God, I found weed, my life is turned upside down. Rarely.
Yeah. What about your thoughts on the drug thing? You like in agreement with that pretty much?
Yeah, I'm in agreement pretty much. I think it's a health problem, should be look at it that way. What is it, Portugal who's done, is it decriminalized? Yeah, so there's cases where it's had huge benefits to the society, just treating it like a health problem, decriminalizing it.
This is going to get controversial. I got to make a clip out of this one for sure. Drugs should be legal. All drugs.
I hope it's not too controversial already.
No, I mean, there are people that are just completely against that, and they're going to say, no, that's bullshit.
I'm sure
drugs
this is
should be
something,
legal.
this is maybe a total segue, but I've noticed for anyone whose first time it is listening to Reid, he runs the Cordial Curiosity YouTube channel.
I'll link it.
And does something great, which is neutrally opens the door and invites people to come in and talk about a stance or an opinion that they have that they feel usually pretty strongly about. And then he kindly and considerately, cordially is curious about it.
Yeah, check it out. Like I've said,
that's my pitch
put
for
the link
channel.
in there. He's going to put me up on his channel soon, right?
Man, well, TBD. But one thing I really like that you do is that you ask them about their commitments and their reasons for holding that stance, of course. But I notice this happens everywhere, that legal and moral become muddy. They become kind of synonymous in people's minds, especially with things like, let's say, abortion, the death penalty, something like that, where or drugs. Someone will say, well, I don't think it should exist, therefore I think the government should make it not exist. And I notice people feel really strongly about that too. Like, and from a genuine place, they'll say, I don't want kids using heroin. I think it should be illegal. And those are, to me, those are two different statements.
Yeah, that's a really good way to. That's just a good point that people conflate legality, morality. Like if it's illegal, it's not moral.
Or if it's a good idea, there needs to be legal repercussions for not doing it.
Yeah.
Like running across the grass. If you can just put up a sign that says, "Please don't run on the grass," fewer people will do it, and maybe there will be some outliers, some people that do, and we can point at them and we can notice them. But if you got arrested for running on the grass, we'd be living in a very different world, right?
Yes,
Exactly, right?
Way different.
So I guess I didn't realize that grass could be kind of a double entendre there, but using grass, right, or effectively interacting with grass in the wrong way, leads to someone telling you that now you need to pay some sort of social consequence for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like cigarettes, right? I don't. It's hard to smoke cigarettes nowadays effectively and be in circles where people are not complaining about it or are like, go over there or I don't want to kiss you or I don't want to, you're spending too much money on it, something like that.
Yes.
So, it's they're not illegal. I don't know that cigarettes will ever be illegal. I don't know that they need to be.
Yeah.
People will probably just stop smoking them eventually.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, that's not just the drug question, but I understand also where people come to the table and they're like, that guy killed people. He needs to be put to death, and they're not, the government question versus the moral question is kind of up for debate,
Yeah, for sure. Seems like the people who are going to get addicted to heroin would get addicted to it regardless of if it was legal or not. You know what I mean?
Often, yeah. And I don't know because
like they'd find that the way if they're like in that crowd and going down that path. Maybe not. I don't know, but it just seems like,
there's so many influences that I feel lucky I get, in my own life, I've addiction has just been a part of my social fabric. But in therapy, you get to really hear somebody out, and people have, if this doesn't sound weird, really good reasons for using their drug of choice. There's almost a perfect airtight story where you could imagine being that person. You go, oh shit, I would totally do that. If you meet the right person at the right time and something is happening in your life, if you had the parents they had, or if you had the loss that they had, the trauma that they had, almost all my clients are highly traumatized people. And if I found a substance to get me cognitively out of that type of trauma or that state of mind, I would use it too. And I wouldn't care whether it's legal or not legal.
Yeah.
So again, just to reemphasize, the legality never comes into the picture. They're never like, well, I realized heroin was illegal, so I decided to start using it to be punk rock.
For sure.
If anything, it's just like, yeah, well, heroin was my obvious drug of choice. And of course you have to jump through some hoops to get it, but I did. And you could get heroin so easily.
I want to ask you this question. I talked with this therapist a little while ago. At some point, she's going to come on, and we started talking. I think she's a addiction therapist, and other things too. But she was saying, I'm curious to get your perspective. I don't know if this is a common thing in the field that you work in, but she was saying that like the core cause for addiction is not loving yourself. Just curious to get your, like, is that like a super hippy dippy thing to say, or is it like?
I don't think it's a hippy dippy thing, but it's a little vague. Yeah. It's a little. I want to say it's a little. It's a little simplistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
What did you say?
It's univariate.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's a good sentiment, but again, like saying that statement or saying one cause of addiction or one influence on addiction is not loving yourself enough. Totally, I would agree with that. Yeah. I don't know about. Again, if I solved the addiction problem, I would be winning Nobel Prizes, and I wouldn't.
I just like to
no
get your
offense,
thoughts
but
on
we'd
it.
be in a bigger studio. So me being an addiction, if anything, it's the Socratic experience. The more I work with it, the more I investigate this stuff and think about it, the less I feel. The further I feel from the quote unquote cause or the explanation. Yeah. It's just so it's really complicated, and it's going back to the depression DSM conversation. It's so hard to even define.
Yeah.
There are things that you can say, yeah, this is pretty much ubiquitous to addiction. There's some experience of not treating yourself right, definitely. There's some in AA they talk about being selfish a lot, so there's some experience of focusing only on yourself. And there's some experience of like a lack of connectedness. There's experiences of not being able to sit with yourself, and especially the negative emotions that you feel. Yeah. Lack of resources, social influences. It's so
very
many
complicated,
things, right?
Very many variables.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I like having the conversation. Like
it's one of my favorites. And the more I talk about it, the nicer it is to hear more and more descriptions and explanations of like, I never considered this one. That's a new ingredient in the addiction recipe, you know. But I would never claim to know exactly what it is. Yeah.
This is the cause.
You can know
for
what
depression.
it's not. You can say, you can exclude certain things, like I don't feel like I'm addicted to oxygen, right? Of course, I need it in the way that people claim to need alcohol. But I don't. There's no dysfunction in my seeking oxygen. I don't spend portions of my day seeking more oxygen. I don't worry that I'm going to run out.
Yeah.
I don't. And these are like the diagnostic criteria of being dependent on something.
Yeah. Well,
but literally, I am dependent on oxygen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm physically dependent on it.
You just said something that makes me want to kind of just get your thoughts on it, which is, I mean, you seem like you're very neutral to the whole thing, like addiction and drugs, the legality of it and everything. But you said it's not like needing oxygen isn't leading to dysfunction. And I've always wondered and thought, if you're taking a drug, and I mean, I think heroin is bad because you can fucking die. You can take it and die. Like, I think that like those that type of thing for me is like, okay, that's like, if you can take something and just die one time you do it, it's like, it's probably not a good thing to do. But marijuana, other drugs, other things that are a little bit not nearly as harsh, I guess is the way to put it. Is it such a bad thing to smoke weed every night if it's not causing dysfunction in your life,
It seems like you answered your own question. If it's not causing dysfunction, I fail to see what the harm is.
So then you can push it to like, well, is it bad to do cocaine every day if it's not causing dysfunction?
Like, is it intrinsically bad?
Yeah.
One thing I would agree with, like, I can hear already in the back of my head, some people would say, well, of course it's bad for you because you're doing this impulsive or addictive thing. You're seeking cocaine to be happy, blah, blah, blah. I hear that.
I hear that too.
And I do think it's possible to not know how you're affecting yourself negatively. I think you can totally not know what you're missing out on or what you are doing to yourself. I'm sure there are habits we all have today that people will look back on and go, how did they even, like driving cars or something.
I was about to say
how
that.
did you even breathe in LA, smoking cigarettes was one of those things until Twitter, of course. Right. Certain forms
100%.
of masochism. I think it's true that some people might be using cocaine and saying, well, I'm one of those people for whom it's not a bad idea, and they're right. And some people would say the same thing and they'd be wrong.
Yeah.
Same with marijuana, same with alcohol, same with, honestly, relationships. That's one of my favorite addictive topics that doesn't get talked about as much.
Well, let's talk about that, because you are a marriage and family therapist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you mean by that's an addictive topic with relationships?
Like you can have this almost identical symptoms, except for the word, of your drug of choice, they would say, would be a relationship or a person or a type of person or an experience, is what Johan Hari would say, rather than a chemical.
But it's
one chemical, an exogenous chemical,
I see
like
what
cocaine.
you're saying. So they're just seeking that same fulfillment of whatever the deeper issue is.
However you
from
want to define it, depends.
The partner.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you might be some common, like, again, in the DSM, like dependency would be, some of the criteria would be stuff like you worry when you don't have it, you spend a disproportionate amount of your day seeking it or acquiring it, you use more and more, you use higher amounts because your tolerance will raise.
That's
things like that.
That's
so
interesting. Really,
consider anyone who you have been in a relationship with, not even romantic, where that has been true. You've needed to spend more time with them. You've worried when they're away. You've felt like you were not going to be okay if they were not around. Things like that.
Amanda from high school, shout out.
Oh, good. We got a name drop. Hope she's listening. This will be. We can have her on the podcast next week, and we'll do maybe a relational session. It'll be good.
No, it's just it's very interesting. But
I'm sorry, by the way, am I monopolizing talking about therapy and relationships? Because I'd love to. I want to know. Okay.
Something I thought would be fun having Reid on from, the whole cordial curiosity is like, what's a topic right now? Something that's on y'all's mind, and we can use the meters.
Oh.
We have the fancy meters, and maybe talk about a topic and just hash out if there are any disagreements on something,
Yeah.
What are the topics of the last?
Have you ever done this wouldn't be appropriate maybe for podcasts, especially if people are just listening, but if anyone's done a mobile debate, those are some of my favorite things to do.
What do you mean?
If I'm ever doing group therapy and we want to spice it up or do something new, I did this first in college where we had, I think it was a sociology class where the teacher said, okay, this end of the room means completely agree, this end of the room means completely disagree, and here's the statement, right? I remember one of them from college was the Ku Klux Klan should be able to march, do a peaceful march, just like any other organization through any city, protected by police, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then, so again, with the whole moral versus legal distinction, people divided them. So people went physically to the side of the classroom that they most endorsed. And then the best part of it is that you talk to each other, because now you're against the wall facing each other. And so I might say to the person on the other end, well, why do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah.
And then they would make their case. And then everyone would do the same thing. So and moderated by, hopefully, if you're all being civil, by someone like Reid or a sociology teacher. And then you can change your mind in real time. So you can move closer to the other side if you want to stop kind of in the middle,
cool.
if you feel neutral, or if your mind completely changes. By the end of the discussion, you might find that half of the classroom has actually shifted their position.
That's awesome.
For or against the proposition.
Yeah.
So those are some of my favorite things.
Yeah, it would be hard to do in this little room at this table, but
there's a great YouTube channel called Jubilee. Have you heard of it?
No.
That has a whole playlist of.
Is that?
Yeah, it's like a blessed. Yeah, they go and they ask people a question, like maybe six or seven
I see
people.
them on the floor. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's like exactly that.
That's awesome. I'll check that
really good
channel out.
Jubilee.
Sure.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah, link right here.
Perfect. Yeah.
What are some of the topics just that you've done on Cordial Curiosity the past couple of weeks? Maybe we can see if one of those brings some interesting thoughts for one of us.
Like one of these topics from Jubilee.
Oh yeah, or that, whatever.
Pause.
Yeah, I can pause it, edit it
Yeah.
out.
Well, they
Anyone
have a
need to
lot
use the
of
restroom or anything?
Do something the same.
Yeah,
And-
and perspectives really get like.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of like ask the topic questions
Gotcha.
in the video.
There is a pro-drugs versus anti-drugs.
Trans topic. We were talking about that a little bit.
Do all
before.
porn stars think the same? Is that teenagers and parents, can they see eye to eye?
Here's one. Should prostitution be legal?
Good one.
Yeah. I was listening to Joe Rogan talk about it on his podcast yesterday, and I was like, wow, it made me think about the whole thing completely, in a completely different way.
What was changing your mind?
Well, just, I haven't really thought about it that deeply, honestly, like prostitution, and is it legal? I don't know. I don't even know like where it might be legal. Is it
I
completely
don't think in
legal?
California. In Nevada, like in Vegas,
Yeah.
it's legal, yeah.
But they were talking about it with, I forgot who was on. It was another comedian, I think, but it was like prostitution should be legal. I mean, there's the group, the incels, right? It's I don't even know how to.
Oh, that was Rogan's prescription for
Yeah,
that?
I mean, he was like, well,
That would be his
He was talking about like, I mean, it's definitely something to think about, like people that unfortunately got a bad hand in terms of the way they look to other people that can't get laid.
I've heard him talk about that.
Yeah, and it's like, well, they can, it's like we need, touch. We need that social connection, and we fucking want to have sex, like biologically speaking. And some people like they can't do it. They can't get laid for whatever reason, disabilities, whatever things there are.
Yeah.
Prostitution, like it's like a service, like anything else, right? Anyway, just something to bring up. Like I was just very like, wow, I haven't really thought about it like that. It's such a like taboo thing that people are like, people who are prostitutes, they're whores, and people who do it, it's whatever, it's sleazy and like,
It's basically legal in LA if you film it.
Good point.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, I haven't. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just one of those topics, one of those interesting things.
Well, like the drug problem, there's a market issue where if it is illegal, then the steps that people have to take to do something. For example, it's another thing that people will do whether or not it's legal. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
well, my thing is like, just destigmatize it. That's the problem. It seems like is why it's you're judged so harshly. You can't talk about it. If you do it, like you can't talk about it. You're like, for a lot of people, you're immediately a piece of shit. If you've slept with a prostitute before, you know what I mean? That's the thing, is that making it not as, such a horrible negative thing, and I guess some people like you guys love, like, not seem very open-minded. You're not judgmental.
I don't really have a strong opinion. I don't feel judgmental about that.
Yeah. But it's just, I haven't really thought about it like that, you know? Like I was like, these people that are labeled incels who like go to a school, shoot up people, like that anger that builds, that resentment that builds over years of never getting laid, and having this anger and resentment towards women because like you get to that place where you just never have that connection. It's like, well, I wonder what would have happened if like 4 years back they would have slept with a prostitute, had that connection, and not been judged as if they're a piece of shit for doing it.
I see.
Anyway, just
one
of those things. Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Are you familiar with essentialism? Like the idea that, well, it's kind of a superstition that we have. It's almost like a logical fallacy that we are something, that we have like an essence, and that kind of rubs off. Like if you held Ted Bundy's jacket, that would be somehow worse.
I have not heard of this.
Or something
it sounds
like that.
Really
yeah,
interesting.
that we kind of like rub off. And I'm not talking about like germs, but it probably has a lot to do with our evolutionary past and germs.
Yeah.
But
essentialism is what
essentialism, like that there's, it's basically like the belief, or the accidental belief that there's something unique about what you do independent of its physical consequences. Like again, like if you held a piece of clothing from a serial killer, or a celebrity, right? That if you go to the Hard Rock, really anywhere in restaurants, hotels, they'll have all these things in display cases, and if Jimmy Page only touched that instrument one time, it'd still be like, well, this is, Jimmy Page's guitar, and all of a sudden it's worth $500 million, and why? I'm not sure. If you again, if Aliens is my litmus test, so I reference Aliens all the time. Where are they, by the way? If they came down and they asked us, why is this guitar worth $100 in this music store and this one is worth $500,000 at the Hard Rock in a glass bulletproof case, we wouldn't have a good explanation.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
You don't understand. This guy was so important.
Yeah,
he was really cool, and I love his music. And the aliens would say, I don't understand. I don't love his music. And was he that cool? I mean, Nelson Mandela also is of your species. And you're like, no, it wouldn't be cool if Nelson Mandela touched a guitar, but it's Jimmy Page.
That is I have not heard of it. Like, at least put it that way.
I think that's what it's called. If anyone wants to correct me, I think that's what it's called. But so we can get really locked in on something just because of what we interact with.
Yeah. How does this tie into prostitution?
So if you're a prostitute and you have, again, you're the alien, right? So you come down to Earth and you say, I've noticed that the one thing people are organizing their lives around is inserting certain body parts into other body parts of other humans. And I noticed that they don't do it too readily. Not all the time. Not in public, usually.
Yeah.
Not unless they have spent some amount of time with each other, and especially alone, right? And they almost never do it when other people are watching. Yeah. And if they do it when other people are watching, then they're normally filming it, and then other people watch in private while they do that. And what's the deal, right? And people will interact with those same body parts, but only in private, and they almost never do it when they're in front of other people. And what's the deal? What's the special circumstance, So you basically have to explain sex.
I love the alien thing, like bringing that up as a litmus test. It's such a perfect way to bring it up. It's a
good way
think about
of catching myself when I'm thinking in an all too human way about something.
Kind of reminds me of John Rawls's Veil of Ignorance a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that? A book?
Do explain.
Tell me.
Oh boy, here we go.
I have a ton of shit I need to put in the show notes.
It's a good philosophical bedrock, though, to use.
It's like a thought experiment where if we want to figure out if a principle is valuable, we think of like a veil of ignorance. So if I'm going to appear on Earth, should this principle apply to me if I'm going to appear somewhere? Like, I don't know what class I'm going to be in, what skin color, what sexuality. So if I have no idea where I'm going to end up, should we go by this value? So it's a way of judging that value ahead of time.
I see. Yeah. I see.
Another way of saying it is basically if you were parachuted onto the Earth from the heavens and you had no idea where you were going to land or how you were going to be treated, how would you want to set up the entire world or any society such that anyone could be parachuted into that society and flourish?
I see.
So if I was going to be parachuted into Afghanistan, I hope that I am a grown-up male, basically. Arabic male, and or rather Middle Eastern male. If I was being parachuted into 19th century America, I better hope that I am not an African American, not African, or even have dark skin at all. Let alone be a woman.
God, why isn't this talked about? This concept. I mean,
it's talked about by people who like talking about it.
I mean, that's a really good way to think about it.
It's kind of like Kant's categorical imperative.
What's your hesitation?
Have you thought about it that way?
I haven't connected that.
The categorical imperative, act only on that maxim by which you can at the same time will that it be a universal law. So if everyone did it this way, would we be better off? So if I lied to you this one time about this one thing and I said, well, it's just one lie. But the rule is everyone in that situation lies about that thing, that'd be bad. We don't want that. So don't steal. A lot of things immediately vanish, right?
Yeah.
Don't run on the grass, right? If I ran on the grass, but everyone ran on the grass would die.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't run on the grass. So that becomes an injunction. So anyway, no, that's the point, right?
Basil.
That's okay. I understand.
I have a nerdy anecdote about a Kant's categorical imperative. when I first moved to the area with the Trader Joe's, with the grocery store, they had the cloth bags for sale. So I had that in my basket, but people thought I had already, bought the cloth bag. So I didn't know that, and I figured out when I got home, oh shoot, they didn't charge me for the bag. So I'm like, oh no, if everybody did that, they'd lose a lot of money. So I went back and told them, oh, I didn't pay for this. So I had them charge me for it, and they're like, wow, that's really nice of you.
I'm
like, that is very nice. It's very cordial.
Right. So Reid is the walking embodiment of Immanuel Kant, just to let everybody know. He's as ethical and as punctual.
What did they say? Were they like, how can we prevent this?
I don't know. But
don't even worry
I
about
just
it.
remember thinking of Kant's principles.
Yeah. So, and for anyone out there who's skeptical that philosophy does anything for us in modern times,
there you go.
It's effectively shaping our behaviors. I think of that all the time, especially in those cases. I think, no, this isn't cool. I don't want to be another one of the people who do this, even if it's kind of insignificant or it seems insignificant. That's a good litmus test for me too.
Yeah, for sure.
But so if you were born in such a circumstance that you either could not have sex, not by choice, or you could have sex with a lot of people and you wanted to get paid for it, then what kind of world do we want to live in where you could be one of each of those people?
Yeah.
And so the essentialism thing to me is, let's say after you get past any kind of religious doctrine that might say that having sex is only for these circumstances at these times.
Yeah.
Let's say you're not even bound by that. It kind of feels icky to know that, oh, this person I was with charged somebody to have sex with them.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to be with that person because they had sex with this person who I despise or who I think is gross. So as far as not catching STDs, it might be a good rule of thumb.
I was going to say
there's that scene in Clerks about the number of blowjobs his girlfriend had. He's like, whatever, how many number it was. He was freaked out about it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, are you physically having sex with as many people as your partner has had sex with? Only in terms of as potential STDs. But if the aliens came down and they said, oh, it looks like here, and they were observing that. Let's say they had surveillance on everybody, and they looked into the bedroom somewhere, and they said, oh, here we have this man who is about to engage in coitus with this woman, just like everyone does, and he just handed her, standard modern currency for his country, and then she left, and then he had a conversation with someone later, and that person was upset that he had done that.
Yeah.
The aliens would probably have
they'd be like, what?
No clue why that happened.
Yeah, why the hell?
Yeah. And similarly, the woman, if someone confronted the woman about it, or if she was in some situation where that caused her shame or embarrassment, the aliens probably would still have no idea why. Yeah. Why is that so much worse? In fact, they might even encourage it. They might say, might as well get paid.
Yeah, for sure. That's the way to think about it.
It's a way to think about it. That's excluding the other human. So some of my clientele have said prostitution is the best thing that they've ever chosen to do because it's like, great, easy money. I needed the cash at the time. They don't have any objection to, and especially if they're fortunate enough, I guess, or if they had the luxury of choosing their clients, if they had some sort of established kind of system where life is really good, and there was a freedom in that, and it was a like a service job almost, right? Or absolutely, and also some of my clients have said, prostitution was the lowest of the low for me. I really regret ever doing something sexual for money because XYZ. And people have different reasons. So I think it would be stupid of me to meet someone and hear that they've either had sex with a prostitute or have been a prostitute, and then to immediately jump to a conclusion that was a good or bad thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It always requires a question. So how was that?
Yeah.
Was that something you wanted to do? Not? Would you do it again? Do you regret it? Yeah. Are you happy about it? Did it serve you?
For
that
sure.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. What about, we kind of talked about it for a second, but you were talking about it on your channel just recently, the trans topic. that question.
Trans in sports?
Yeah, like trans in sports. Should trans women be able to compete in sports? Just, bringing that question
I'm going to defer to your YouTube channel and the 2 conversations you had.
And you had 2 people that completely opposite opinions on it.
Yeah, for me, I'm leaning towards no for most sports, but depending on the sport, maybe gymnastics is fine. But I'm still agnostic about it. I'm maybe like leaning, if I had to put it on the scale.
I love it. I love that.
Like meaning like a little bit over there.
Yeah.
Depending on the sport. If it's like weightlifting, then virtually no. But
yeah,
it's a complicated topic.
It's very complicated.
I'm still reaching reasons for and against.
But you brought something up that I thought was interesting about golfing. That whole thing, I was like, he was talking about it. If you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, honestly.
Yeah, golfing has kind of solved the problem anyway because people have handicaps in golf.
Yeah.
But there is the different tee distances. There's like a women's tee, there's like a mid tee, and then the black is like far back. And I don't even really know the rules too much, but I think if you have a lower handicap, you go to the further back. So there's kind of a system there that makes it more fair. So I don't know how that would work.
I thought it was so interesting because it's like, well, if you're a woman, there's a handicap and you're further back. And I was like, but what if you're like a 6'3" tall woman with long arms, and that's going to completely change the way you swing? Like, do you go?
Well, there's another. I'm deliberately getting away from the trans component because I think it's different than that.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you as far as generally the reasons people feel strongly about any topic they bring to your cordial curiosity table, that there's kind of a sympathetic response where someone doesn't want to be limiting other people, especially the liberal or like left-leaning mindset is basically being inclusive.
Yeah.
Like the question is not why should this person be able to do this thing? It's why shouldn't they?
Yeah. Why not?
And then saying that someone can't or shouldn't do something is tantamount to saying that they're less valuable or we're discriminating for no reason or something.
Yeah.
But even in sports, it's never fair. I didn't choose to be born into my physiology and no one else did. Neither did LeBron James.
Yeah.
He's worked extremely hard to use what was born with. And I could work just as hard, maybe. I mean, I don't know if there's a work ethic. I mean, even that, right, would be something that I can't exactly control for.
Yeah.
But even if he and I were born the same day at the same time, we were never going to be the same performers at certain sports.
Yeah.
And where you might need to be small and maybe like more dainty, he would not succeed. He could never be that person,
Yeah.
So again, it's hard to say I mean, even in weightlifting, actually, tall people with long arms and long frames tend to be really good at deadlifting, and really bad at squatting because you just have to go. You're just the mechanics
Distance,
don't add up, right? So if I said, if I went to a weightlifting competition and I scored slightly lower than somebody who squatted a lot more than me because they're shorter, I wouldn't say, oh, yeah, but you don't understand. He's shorter, so I probably should have won the contest, right? He still squatted more than me.
Yeah.
So even in Olympic weightlifting where there's a pull and push component to it, it's never going to be truly fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's for sure 100%. It seems like we kind of talked about
I'm sorry,
that.
I said fair. I mean equal.
Yeah.
And fairness doesn't imply sameness.
Yeah.
But it's never going to be equal. Like no two people.
Yeah, that's a good distinction.
Yeah.
Like we hit on it a little bit, the way that you judge the sport. Because my thoughts are like, it's different in Olympics. The way that you judge someone doing their routine, it doesn't matter man or woman. Like that's a completely different way of scoring it and judging it. But like, right? I mean, like a woman and a man.
Don't they have like ice skating where it's mixed anyway?
Yeah, they have like ice skating mixed.
Ice skating.
And then
with weightlifting, it's really a matter of you did it or you didn't do it. Though.
Yeah, there's the weightlifting, but for me it's like, like a trans woman, like a man that had that transitioned to woman going into the UFC. To me, that's pretty.
Well, the stakes are much higher, of course.
The stakes are higher, and there's a huge biological difference there. And for me, that's where I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's a great thing. I don't think that's fair. I guess I would say,
but things that is the debate.
Yeah, like the way that you judge sports, though, like if in the Olympics, is there? I don't even know, honestly. Like I don't watch the Olympics often, but is there men's gymnastics, women gymnastics, and there's the men women teams, and is it mixed ever? They don't mix it because it seems like why wouldn't you mix it? But I guess because it's also an individual thing. You do your routine. What are the bars called? The really tall bars where you do all the swings on it. What is that called? I don't remember. That's what's popping into my mind.
The high bar and the low bar. I don't know what they.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called either. But like the way that that's judged doesn't seem like it matters your gender because you're not competing and there isn't a physical advantage where you're like going up against someone.
I don't know nearly enough about Olympic scoring to know that. Yeah,
just curious. Like,
but I think they do have men's and women's contests. Like there would be a male gold winner and a female gold winner.
Yeah. Like that's for sure. Yeah. What other topics have you been hitting on the channel?
We talked about the coddling of the American mind a little bit.
Yeah, we can go into that more.
The three untruths that they mention.
We're about to hit like an hour and a half, so it's like 9:05. I don't know about the time with you guys.
Sure. So yeah, we're a big fan of Jonathan Haidt and his latest book, The Coddling of the American Mind. He goes through and has a few chapters on the three bad ideas, these untruths, great untruths. And the first one is the untruth of fragility. What doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Kind of a play on, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So the untruth is what makes you weaker. And it's about, anti-fragility. I think related to Nassim Taleb's idea of, is that it? Anti-fragility?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I'm just curious, what, if you don't mind just expanding on, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you weaker. What does that mean exactly?
Well, like, what are they pointing at?
Yeah, like, what are they pointing at? What is he getting at with that? Because obviously the more common phrase is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger because you get through the struggle of whatever it was that was trying to kill you.
Yeah. Well, I think they word it like that because the implication of avoiding things that appear to harm you or appear to be painful or difficult is that they should be avoided. So that something that makes you uncomfortable or something that maybe criticizes you or challenges you in certain ways it's better if you don't have to go through those circumstances. So the untruth, if I'm getting this right, is what doesn't kill you makes you weaker, which would be let's call it a false belief of a lot of people who would say the what doesn't kill you just refers to the any harmful or negative experience.
Yeah.
And they might argue, well, it's just going to make you weaker. It's going to make you more threatened or paranoid or worse off in some way.
Yeah. What other ones?
Add to that?
Add to
that's basically it. They go through a bunch of analogies where children need to go out into the world and get scraped up and stuff. Just seek out difficult situations to grow, that type of thing.
Yeah. Goggins.
Yeah. The next one is the untruth of emotional reasoning. Always trust your feelings. I'm sure you have a lot to talk about that.
I could, but I fear that I've spoken enough already today. I feel like I'm monopolizing.
I
know you're quiet by nature, but or at least around me you have been.
That's an interesting one. Just making it political. Always trust your feelings. It's like seems like the very, very conservative types are like, no, that's bullshit. You shouldn't always trust your feelings.
This is. Do you like Antonio Damasio?
Facts don't care about feelings.
Fan. I'm a big fan. Well, I know facts don't care. Facts don't care, but feelings are facts. That's where I know Ben Shapiro has this quick quip that he loves to repeat.
Yeah.
But Antonio Damasio,
Wait, what
I've
do you
spoken
mean
at
facts?
Feelings
are facts.
If you have a feeling, that is
fact.
a type of fact. It's a fact about your subjective experience.
Yeah.
It's a fact about your physiology. If I said, I'm really nervous right now, you could measure my galvanic skin response. You can measure my heart rate, my breathing. That's a completely measurable, factual state of affairs.
Yeah.
And I could say, if when I say worried, I mean these physiological symptoms, and you're exhibiting those physiological symptoms.
Yeah, but maybe the pushback is like, but there is no way, if you were to just tell me right now you're anxious, I don't fucking know if you're lying or not. There's no way for me to believe you.
No, right. But
I mean?
think the utility in someone like Ben Shapiro saying that is that when he's right about something, that saying something like, well, I don't like that fact, or I don't like that outcome is not a good enough reason to make that thing false.
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to think of something he would say, like if he's talking about the economy being in a depression, or if he's talking about such and so person said this thing, and someone says, no, they didn't, they're a good person, he would say, well, I don't care what you feel about his character, he said this thing, or the economy really is, so I think it's a way of saying that you need to stop complaining. That would be Ben Shapiro's probably first. But Antonio Damasio, I've spoken at length on this podcast, so I don't want to bore anybody if it's their second time around, but he has totally absolved me of the difference between, the difference and separability between reason and feelings, or what people call emotions, synonymously.
Go into that a little bit. We've hit on it.
Just
we talked about it a little bit.
As an overview, a feeling, this is how Antonio Damasio breaks it down. And again, if I'm totally messing this up, I am not the guy. Sorry, but this is my best description. Reid is here to keep me accountable.
Yeah.
So a feeling would be a completely subjectively known experience. So it'd be ontologically subjective. It'd be something that only you could know.
Yeah.
I can never know how you're feeling.
Yeah.
So no matter what brain scanning or whatever I'm using, only you know what it's like to be you. So even if you're just conscious, if you're sitting in a silent room, there's a feeling of being alive and just knowing that your mind is on.
Yeah.
Another feeling could be the worry itself, or dread, a sense of dread. So you can feel those ways. You can feel excited. You can feel happy. The emotion, and a lot of times feeling and emotion are used synonymously, just shorthand. But I don't get on people's case, by the way. If someone says, "Yeah, I'm feeling really," I'm not like, "Well, you don't understand." I just mean when people are insensitive about these things, it sometimes helps to distinguish it.
Yeah.
So the emotion, which has the word motion in it deliberately, is an observable consequence of a feeling. So you feel a certain way internally, and your body manifests that feeling by exhibiting symptoms like an increased heart rate, breathing, skin response, sweating, shaking, or even action. So the action would be the behavior. That would be the kind of the full circle of a feeling leading to an emotion, leading to a consequence.
Well, I have not really. I think I've been someone that conflates feelings and emotion.
I think we all are,
like
right? I grew up
necessarily
until Damasio, really, until like last year.
Yeah.
And then so what people will consider often the opposite or the antithesis to those things would be being logical or being rational. So people would say, I'm a rational person because I'm like Spock. And the example I like that Steven Pinker gives is that when outsiders attack the ship on Star Trek, Spock doesn't stand on his head. He fights back, right? So he's using, we would like to think that he's emotionless, but he's using the emotion that, or rather the feeling of fear that guides him, and then he uses his rationality to say, how do I reduce this feeling of fear? I fight these people off, I feel safe, which is another feeling. Yeah. And so I'm being rational insofar as I'm meeting my emotional needs. So you're not being emotional. Like everyone is, this is my opinion, everyone is equally emotional. We all need a feeling that gives rise to an emotion that makes us do anything, even to sit and meditate. Yeah. I have to be influenced somehow, even by my own mind, to go shopping for groceries, to give someone a compliment, to get behind the wheel of my car and go somewhere. Yeah. I need to want an outcome that is another subsequent feeling state. Yeah. I feel fear, I do something to reduce the fear. I feel excited, I do something to pursue that excitement. Yeah. So anyway, so I really don't like that people will say, well, I'm a very rational person. Or it makes sense though. I mean, totally. If someone says, I was being irrational, I threw my coffee mug at that person instead of talk to them. That makes sense because the rational response would be to reduce that anger. And instead they created a new situation about which to be angry or be upset. Yeah, for sure. So it was not rational insofar as it didn't align with their desired feelings or emotions.
What is that case that you talked about?
By the way, have I erred in any of that, or is that just anything stupid? Okay.
No. What is that case that you talked about again? What was that from? That about the guy who didn't have emotions, or however.
From Damasio's book.
I heard you talk about
Yeah, we've already talked about Elliot, right?
Yeah.
So, the story of Elliot.
Yeah.
Was that his name?
It's just,
I don't remember the name.
because you were just like, I think everyone is equally emotional, but it sounded like you were saying it wasn't that he had emotions.
Yeah, it was just a way to falsify the idea that if reason could, lead the chariot, then we would have perfect lives.
Yeah.
But there was the natural experiment where kind of, the guy's emotions were just taken out of his brain, so he didn't really feel them, and his life didn't go so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
God.
You need that to make decisions in your life.
Yeah, for sure. What do you? This just popped into my mind, but what just where we're kind of hitting our time, we're hitting coming up on 2 hours here in a little bit, but what I always like to ask this question. Do you? I don't even know how to ask it. Like, language, right? Language. There's a bunch of ways I want to branch off of everything you're just talking about. But like, one is, do you think language came before meaning, or meaning came before language? Just like completely your opinion. Like, do you think language came first? These fucking mammals that we were made weird sounds that didn't mean anything. But the more that we did it, the more we practiced it, the more it became specific, then meaning formed from that. Or was it that we had these emotions and feelings first, and then the language just kept getting more precise to describe the emotions and feelings? Just, I'm just throwing it out there just for fun.
There's linguists who would be way better at describing this than me, but
I've just been listening to Terrence McKenna a lot.
So. Oh, gotcha. John McWhorter is my favorite linguist, and he talks a lot about
God, I gotta look into that because it's such. What were you gonna say? You were pulling the mic towards you.
Also a fan of John McWhorter, especially the Glenn Show. They were great together.
God, well,
Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter often talk on the Glenn Show, and they're a riot. They're awesome. But John is a linguist by trade. And he wrote a great book about the origin of human language, and it's fantastic.
I need to read it.
Look it up.
It's very interesting.
But just one thing to point out, that's your words, our speech, doesn't have any intrinsic meaning. So it's not like people discovered the word for water. We basically made it up.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, as evidenced by every language making sense internally and none of it being mutually intelligible, unless you speak that language. So
I always like to think about too, what is it going to be like, or is it even possible, or what would it be like if using technology of some form or another, artificial intelligence, what will it be like the day when we're able to feel, like I'm able to somehow connect to your brain and literally just experience your life? How different would things be if we could do that,
I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder.
I don't know.
I wonder if
some people's lives I don't want to feel, and some people I don't want feeling my life.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if it would make everyone more sympathetic, or if it would make people have more reason to complain. Oh, well, my life is harder than yours now that I felt it. So fuck you. Like you don't know anything about what I'm feeling.
It could. I can imagine also group punishment, group consequence style. In a very sinister way, where multiple people might be forced to feel a certain way because of the actions of someone else. If you're on a soccer team and one person is slacking off, and then you make them feel awful, and then you make your team feel awful as a response.
I haven't thought
those
about
things
that.
are thought experiments around that.
For sure is going to happen if we ever advance technology enough to be able to connect to someone else's brain.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, the finding about, I guess, the reaction to Damasio's description of feelings, emotions, and rationality is that before we can do that, we only really have access to our own sensations, and then we have to actually use language like we're using right now to describe what's that like. And there's therapy. So one thing we can do, this is coming full circle to meditation, you can separate those things in a moment before you automatically respond to something via a behavior. So you might feel fear, and then you might notice, oh my gosh, I'm kind of shaking, and I'm worried, and I'm restless. Well, before you act on that, especially if you're using your rationality, we might say, to if you're at work, let's say, and you're feeling fearful about what's going to happen after work. Well, you need to get the job done in the moment. So you can notice, you can sit with that set of feelings and even the emotion, and the rational response might be, it might even be to do something about it in a different way. Like maybe you need to go to the bathroom, sit there for a minute, hang out because I'm not doing my job well because I'm suffering from this subjective experience.
No.
As opposed to quitting or yelling at your boss or overreacting.
Yeah.
And so one of the insights of meditation is that you get exposed to that whole range of feelings and emotions before, actually all the while knowing that you're not going to do anything about it. I'm going to be sitting here for the next hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever.
For sure. So
you can gain an insight that you otherwise wouldn't get if you just waited till something happened. If you ate that next thing, again, this is going back to the having a feeling that your feelings are always right. Yuval Harari, who is my personal hero, talks a lot about those things, and that there's phrases like the customer is always right or follow your heart. Those are ways of ensuring that we're not going to think very much about what we're going to do next. So we have a feeling, and then we see an immediate consequence, and we just do it because we're told that's a good thing, that you should be more like that. You should do that more often. Anytime you feel something, just pursue it. And I don't know if you know Alain de Botton. He's one of my favorites. I love him. He's great. He runs the School of Life in London, right? Great YouTube channel. A lot of animated shorts where he's talking over it. He's like a modern philosopher.
Gotcha.
He's very accessible, very witty and fun, and a great writer.
Check it out.
Big plug for Alain. Alain is his first name.
And I'll probably put a card right here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. He's fantastic. So he also, in a talk, asked people, who here thinks that you can think too much about your emotions? And people raise their hand, and he says, no, you can only think badly. You can only think poorly, essentially, about what you're thinking or feeling. You can't think too much. You're always going to be thinking some amount. Again, I get what people mean when they say, oh, I overthought it, which basically means I had the right idea, and then I started thinking, and then I arrived to an idea that I liked less, and I did that. But I do like to reinforce that. You can imagine the difference between somebody who just has a thought and goes, you know what? I need to stop thinking too much. I'll just buy that expensive thing. Or the guy that says, I really want to buy this expensive thing. I think I should think more about it. And they ask people around them, and they get input, and they do research. And maybe they still end up buying that thing, but I wouldn't have said, oh, you thought too much about it. I'd say, it sounds like you made a very reasoned choice.
Yeah, for sure.
We kind of praise that, even though we also say like, oh, I thought too much about it. And so just to go back and forth on that, I don't know that it's possible to overthink something.
Yeah.
Care to add?
And well, just a plug, you were talking about being able to share someone else's experience.
Yeah.
Season 4, episode 6 of Black Mirror has a really good episode called
everyone
called Black
I
Museum.
gotta watch that show.
That's
I've
like a
recommended
full-length
so
movie,
many
practically.
times. God, I need to watch it.
Yeah. You've never seen it?
No, I haven't watched. I know I've seen like a little bit of it, but I haven't watched.
It's modern philosophy available to everyone. I highly recommend it.
Well, I'm gonna
Almost
watch
every episode is based on some philosophical thought experiment.
That's awesome. Definitely need to watch it. Make it a priority. Watch Black Mirror for sure.
I agree.
Well, guys, this is awesome. I swear to God, every time you come on, it reminds me to not feel like a piece of shit. When I'm going through the rough time, it just I really appreciate it. Serious. It's really awesome.
It's my pleasure.
And I really love
consider that a victory.
Yeah, I love having you guys on, and I hope you use me in your YouTube channel, Reid. You guys should. You guys should. You should go on his YouTube channel. And that would be like I can't see that going, because you guys are both such neutral, just not super, not super. I believe this is my belief, change my mind about it. But it'd be cool just to see you guys do something on there.
Yeah, maybe. I can't imagine it being very stimulating if we just agree on everything.
Yeah. I was telling him I want to have a debate, or I don't want to have a debate, but I want to host a debate. I was talking about Chris and the pastor I had on having a debate. But I was saying both of you guys I could see being really awesome hosts, or moderators for a debate. That'd be really awesome.
So we met through the IDW meetup group.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could do another one. Like I hosted the meetup for Peterson. We could do like a round table, an idea, and we could pass around a mic and just, shoot an episode for
that would
for one
be
of our YouTube
awesome.
channels. That'd be fun.
That is a really good idea.
I would certainly do that. You were very kind to host too. If you wanted any part in that for the actual sit down, I'm open to. I mean, that's kind of the curse of, I guess, neutrality is that it's not that exciting. The really, really strong opinions. It's not that I'm without strong opinions. I have strong opinions about certain things.
But meditation is good.
Yeah, but not even for everyone. So here I am qualifying that. Like I don't think everyone should go on a retreat and sit by themselves. They might go crazy. But definitely for a hot topic or for maybe, I guess if I knew ahead of time that someone would have a very strong opinion in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Or maybe my strong opinion would be one of neutrality, like maybe of not feeling so strongly about what the government says about drugs, for example, something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like an opinion, but it would be at least getting someone away from other strongly held opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the whole street epistemology thing, just the asking questions, trying to help people see their belief in a completely different way. But really good idea. We are going to do that. We have to set that up.
It'd be fun.
It's really awesome. But I really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
It was super fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night.